People play video games for a variety of reasons. The story, just to relax. There's also some weird people that like realism for some reason. One of my favorite things is gameplay. While I can excuse a cheesy story or generic characters, it's hard to overlook gameplay where I need to wait 10 minutes just to skin an animal. Like, Jesus Christ, do people seriously like this game? Gameplay is of course a very broad term. Solving the puzzles in 999 is gameplay as well, so let's get a little more specific. I really like 3D action games. The combat in those has so much potential. Air combos, animation cancelling, juggling and so much more. These things obviously don't fit every 3D action game. It wouldn't make sense if you could do that stuff in Dark Souls, a game that's all about carefully planning your actions, where every move has weight. 3D action games have a heavy focus on combat, which means the player of course has to get tested at certain points. And that's what bosses are for. Those ideally test the skills you've acquired by fighting normal enemies. I love boss fights, just a one-on-one on equal ground. That's also why I prefer humanoid bosses. They feel like dudes between two people with similar tools. And of course there are a lot of great ones out there. But in this video I want to talk about my 3 favorite bosses who all happen to be from 3D action games. Oh man, what is there to say about Kingdom Hearts? It's just a mess of a series. I'm pretty much in an abusive relationship with it. I'd really like to distance myself, but somehow I'm emotionally invested. And well, that's pretty much thanks to one character. Yeah, fuck all these other generic pieces of shit. This boy right here. You play as him in the prologue in KH2 and most people have never seen him before and wonder what the fuck is going on. Roxas lives a mostly normal life with his friends, but recently he had dreams about Sora and the things he experienced. While he's goofing around with his friends, a weird creature appears and Roxas chases after it. During the confrontation, a key-shaped stick manifests in his hand which he uses to quickly dispose of the creature. You then spend time doing part-time jobs in order to earn enough money to buy train tickets. Before that happens though, a black hooded figure appears and steals the money. During all this time of confusion, a light appears. To be exact, Namine, and she gives Roxas a hint as to what's been going on these past few days, but she gets stopped by the pickpocket. The next day, Roxas and his friends participate in a struggle tournament, which again gets interrupted by outside forces. This time it's a red-haired man named Axel. He forces Roxas to fight, but they get stopped by another stranger appearing. Axel and the stranger demand different things from Roxas, which leads to him shutting them off and screaming the name of his friends. That helped and the two men disappeared. We then see a cutscene from the perspective of Axel where it gets revealed that Roxas was part of an organization. Axel gets ordered to bring Roxas to them and the scene ends, with Roxas again spending a day with his friends. At the end of it we visit the mansion because it is said a girl sometimes appears at the second floor window. Roxas gets teleported into Namine's room which is full with drawings of Sora and his friends. But also Roxas and Axel. Namine reveals that the two of them are best friends. Roxas shrugs it off and asks her about what's been going on lately. She tells him that he's needed in order to make Sora whole again because he's half of Sora. To be exact, is nobody. The next day Axel appears again but gets stopped by the red-cloaked stranger from before named This. He tells Roxas to get to the mansion, which he does. He enters Namine's room and upon seeing a picture, memories of the past come back. He turned on the organization. Axel wanted to stop him but with no success. We get back to the present and Namine appeared. Roxas finally asks the question which he's been so afraid of. Now that he knows what he is, what will happen to him? She tells him that he won't disappear, he'll be whole again. She says they'll meet again even if they won't recognize each other, but then gets taken away by This. Roxas goes deeper into the mansion and ends up remembering the time Riku defeated him and brought him to This. He then got transported into a virtual reality version of Twilight Town and has been living there ever since then. And this is where I have to step in real quick. Can you imagine how Roxas must be feeling right now? He learned he's been living in a fake world, he's only half a person that was never supposed to exist, he lost his memory and with that the bonds with the two most important people to him, and on top of all of that, he's just a kid. But back on track. Shortly after, Axel appears and this time both of them know they're friends but have to fight each other anyways. The coolest thing ever happens and Axel gets defeated. This taunts Roxas, which leads to him lashing out but with no effect. Sora appears before Roxas and we get one of the saddest lines in gaming, period.
Looks like my summer vacation is over.
Some people might wonder, why am I talking about the prologue of KH2? Isn't this video supposed to be about boss fights? Well yeah, but I believe the lead up and context to said fight is at least just as important as the mechanical complexity. That's something I will touch on again near the end of the video. From this point on, Sora goes on his merry adventure. In the world that never was, Sora gets confronted by a hooded figure dual-wielding keyblades and the fight begins. First up, that theme. Inject that shit into my veins. This battle is all about blocking his moves and countering until the AI says stop. For the first 4 health bars, it's quite simple. A long combo, a flip, and a big AoE. After that he begins shooting laser beams which are unblockable. He also starts using a new cinematic attack. Problem is, it's too easy to dodge and it doesn't give you a chance to get damage in, which makes it tedious. Once Roxas teleports into the middle of the arena, you're like, oh god damn it, 10 seconds of doing nothing. The worst thing about this fight is his attack where he flows in the air and his keyblades rotate while attacking you. It has crazy tracking and is almost unavoidable when he does that after your combo. It just always feels kinda bullshit. The coolest thing about this fight is his reaction command. Usually quicktime events suck, but in this game they are so cool and they give the enemy's character, so it's fine. Roxas charges at you and then you have to pick the end. The cool thing about this is it's been foreshadowed by Roxas' samurai nobodies. They have the exact same mechanic, and this isn't a one-time thing. Most of the endgame nobodies foreshadow boss fight mechanics. If you succeed, you take his keyblades since they originally belonged to Sora. Now your combos get supported with light beams. Roxas defends himself, but this is mainly a DPS phase. Once the time is up, you have another reaction command which gets you another free combo. Eventually the fight will end, but they continue in a cutscene which seemingly ends with Roxas' victory, but Sora has that protagonist plot armor and wins in the end. We get to see an emotional conversation between Axel and Roxas, which really works because we've spent so much time with Roxas in the prologue. Roxas accepts his defeat and returns to Sora. And that's pretty much his story. This fight works mainly because of the emotional investment. People whine about the prologue being too slow paced, but that's what makes this battle amazing. Unlike the other two fights, this isn't a mechanical 10 out of 10, but who really cares? It's always the whole picture that counts. Quite possibly the coolest character in gaming. Every time he is on screen, he steals the spotlight. He's become so iconic over the years that it's easy to forget how he ever got to that point. So let's take a look. The two sons of Sparta were raised by their human mother Aoife. During their childhoods, they've already showed signs of the personalities they're gonna have as jaded old men. Dante was always extroverted and wanted to have fun, dragging his brother into shenanigans. Virgil, on the other hand, liked being alone and spending his time reading books. One day, Mundus, the ruler of the demon world, attacked the home of the siblings because of their connection to Sparta. The mother Aoife managed to quickly save Dante and hide him in a closet. She went out to look for her older son, but it ended in her death. Virgil had to fend for himself and got traumatized by this event. He thought their mother chose to save Dante and abandoned him. The resentment drags itself throughout Virgil's entire life. Many years later, Dante is close to opening his own business, but before that he gets approached by a man named Arkham. He claims that Virgil invites Dante to a meeting, which of course catches his interest. Following that, Dante gets attacked by demons, one of them being a Hell Vanguard, who's the first boss in the game. Once he's defeated, a giant tower appears in the middle of the city with Virgil standing on top of it. He wants Dante's necklace since it's the only thing they have left of their mother, and on top of that it holds great power. The defeated Hell Vanguard appears before Virgil seemingly to ask for forgiveness, but he's having none of that and kills it with one move. That's something that'll happen often in DMC3. Virgil doing something better than Dante in order to build him up, and it works really well. Shortly after, Dante encounters a woman he calls Lady. She's here to stop Arkham and she will be used as a reflection to Dante throughout the story. After some tower climbing, the two brothers have their first battle in years. Dante, of course in character, takes the whole thing in a joking manner. Virgil on the other hand gets straight to the point and defeats Dante, taking his necklace in the process. Dante tries to attack again but gets impaled by his own sword, the Rebellion, which he got from his father's father. That awakens his devil trigger for the first time. Arkham's goal is to open the gate to the demon world with Sparta claws, but he gets distracted by his daughter Lady, which leads to Virgil impaling him. Arkham fulfilled his purpose, so he gets disposed of. Lady eventually finds him barely alive. She wants to kill him for what he's done to her and her mother, but the familial bond is too strong and she gets manipulated by him. Dante meanwhile fights Beowulf, who feels only hatred for Sparta's blood. Dante defeats him, but for the first time a boss manages to escape. Up till now all the bosses got defeated and transformed into weapons, but not this time. Beowulf stumbles upon Virgil, who quickly kills the demon, claiming a new weapon in the process. How cool is that? Dante expands his arsenal and his brother does the same. That's how you make two characters feel equal in a video game. Virgil uses the two necklaces and his own blood to open the gate to the demon world, but without success. Dante walks in, taunting his brother, and their second fight takes place. This time both brothers have more weapons at hand and use their devil triggers. The encounter ends with a draw because they get interrupted by Arkham and Lady. Arkham manipulated the two brothers and now uses that to acquire Sparta's power. The tower raises even higher and the brothers separately work their way up again. Shortly before facing Arkham, Dante and Lady fight for the right of who fights him. Dante wins and Lady gives her Kalina arm to him. Arkham is unable to control Sparda's power and transforms into this weird thing, which is super lame by the way. Dante struggles and surprisingly gets help by his brother Virgil. With their strength combined, they defeat Arkham easily. Lady again confronts him during his last breath and she wants to finish him off, but it's not easy. Even though he's done all these terrible things, he still is her father. Family runs deep, but eventually she manages to pull the trigger. The brothers end up in another fight. Virgil still wants the necklace. He needs the power that comes with it. He never wants to be helpless again. But it's not enough. This time Dante wins. Virgil willingly falls down into the demon world, the place his father came from. Dante tries to catch him, but without success. The brothers never hated each other. One is just too stubborn while the other one is scarred by the past. Virgil encounters Mundus in the demon world but loses due to the wounds of his previous battle. Some years pass and Dante gets told by Trish, a woman who resembles his mother, that Mundus is back doing evil things. Dante goes to Malay Island to get revenge. During his time there he encounters a humanoid enemy named Nilo Angelo who reacts to Dante's necklace. During the final encounter, Nilo Angelo gets rid of his helmet, revealing that it's Virgil, controlled by Mundus. After his defeat he disappears, leaving behind his necklace. Dante defeats Mundus and continues to hunt demons with Trish and Lady. During that time Virgil finds his way back into the human world. Enjoying his youth, I guess. Years later DMC4 takes place with new character Nero being the protagonist now. He doesn't seem to be completely human though. His right arm is demonic and gives Nero cool abilities. During his adventure he eventually gets his hands on the Yamato, Virgil's sword that was given to him by Sparda. The sword fuses with his arm and awakens Nero's devil trigger. Dante wants the sword back since it belongs to the Sparda family, but he lets Nero have it since he really needs it. After some shenanigans, the big bad gets defeated, Nero and Dante part ways and Nero still has the Yamato inside his arm. A few years later, Nero works together with a girl named Nico. Nero is a devil hunter like Dante now and Nico drives him to the targets. One day while working on Nico's truck, Nero gets attacked by a hooded figure that rips off his buster arm, transforms it into the Yamato and teleports away. Of course, that person is Virgil. He returns to his old home and stabs himself with the Yamato, which has the power to separate demon from human. With that, Urizen, Virgil's demon form, and V, Virgil's human form, get created. V visits Dante and tells him that Virgil is back, which gets Dante to go after him. Urizen created the Tree of Cliforth in order to get some fruit that gives him more power. Dante, Lady and Trish go there to stop him. Meanwhile, V pays Nero a visit and claims that Dante needs help. Nero faces Urizen and gets completely destroyed. Same with Dante. A few hours later, V is searching for the Sword of Sparda in the hope that it defeats Urizen. He finds Dante close to it, wakes him up, and Dante makes his way to his old home. He learned that the Yamato separates demon from human, so he asks what can the rebellion do. He stabs himself like Virgil and awakens to his Sin Devil trigger, flies over to Urizen and completely bodies him, saving Nero in the process. But the fruit Urizen wants appeared now and he teleports to it with Dante, Nero and V following separately. Dante arrives first and defeats Urizen again, even in his powered up state after eating the fruit. V and Nero arrive shortly after and V stabs Urizen with his cane, fusing the two together and fully reviving Virgil. He tells Dante to recover and teleports to the top of the tree. Dante reveals that Virgil is Nero's father, which is why he left the Yamato in Nero's care. Family is a big plot point in this series. Nero grew up with the family of his girlfriend Kyrie. In DMC4 he failed to save her brother Credo, which nags away at him till this day. Now that he's learned that he has biological family, he's confused as to what to do, unlike Dante who's immediately on his way to whoop his brother's ass again. Eventually Dante makes it to the top and we finally get the fight we've been waiting for. And just like Rock says, the music is great, but this time it's more to build hype instead of emotion. Now, because this is DMC we're talking about, there are of course a million different ways to approach this battle. I chose to focus on Royal Guarding because it's fun and you don't have to replay an entire mission when you die. He uses his judgment cuts as usual, which are easy to guard. Sometimes he teleports in and smacks you. He has a short and long version of that and I completely suck at guarding those. The timing just isn't intuitive to me. He also really likes to spam his summoning swords, which are easy to guard but not exactly fun to interact with. Every now and then he does a charge which will end up in a little cinematic, but it's easy to avoid. The advantage of using Royal Guard is that you get a lot of DT, so I charge my SDT in the first phase. Eventually he goes into his SDT and I do the same. Most of the time I instantly use Judgment for free damage since I kinda lose concentration in this mode. Now I have to face SDT Virgil and all his moves now have follow-ups. Most of them get 4 additional judgment cuts which will charge your royal gauge like crazy, but I'm a bit of a pussy so I don't do that. After a while he does his new super move where he charges, flies up and dive bombs you 3 times. What I love about this move is how well it fits into this game. DMC gives you a million tools to defeat the enemy while looking as cool as possible. So you can guard him, jump over him, Dodge him with Trickster, and if you're really confident, you can Royal Release his ass and force him out of his SDT. After recording the footage, I also learned you can stop him from flying up by using Mega Cascade with the double Kalina N. But however you choose to deal with it, Virgil will return back to his normal mode, but he still has more moves than in his first phase. He really loves to spam Judgment Cut now, and after his fourth one he is vulnerable. After exiting his SDT, he can use Judgment Cut End, which is really cool but easy to dodge with Trickster. You can block it of course if you're confident enough. Once he only has 25% HP left, he summons a clone, which makes things quite tricky, but a Stinger and Double Trigger deals with that nuisance. And from there on out, it's just about grinding his HP down. I love how this fight fits perfectly into the frame of Devil May Cry. Every single move in your arsenal works here. There's no, Virgil is too cool so we can't let the player juggle him in the air. No, you can use whatever you want. Once your time on the offense is up, Virgil will get blown away, meaning it's his turn to attack. And I forgot to mention that if you taunt him, he'll sometimes taunt back, which just adds this little bit of extra character to this encounter. After your victory, Nero jumps in to stop them with his new Devil Trigger. The two are set on killing each other, which Nero isn't okay with since they're both family, which Nero highly values. Virgil won't just bow to the demands of his son, and you fight him now as Nero. This fight unfortunately isn't as good simply because Nero counters Virgil so hard it's not even funny. But I definitely have to show the two coolest Buster animations in the series. Nero wins and Virgil plays nice for now. The two brothers fly down to the root of the tree in order to stop it. After doing that, they keep fighting and arguing, but without malicious intent now. And that's the story of Virgil so far. He got traumatized in his youth and got obsessed with power because of it. He never wants to be too weak for something again. He was jealous of his brother and wanted to beat him in order to prove that he's better than him. A very childish mindset, which makes sense since Virgil has been stuck in his childhood. Hopefully he can now find his own path without being blinded by trauma.
Knight Artorias came to stop this, but such a hero has nary a murmur of dark. Without doubt he will be swallowed by the abyss, overcome by its utter blackness. Indeed, the abyss may be unstoppable.
A legendary knight who is said to have saved an entire city from the biggest threat humanity has ever faced. But is that the truth? The world of Dark Souls started off as a place ruled by dragons. Eventually 4 creatures found souls of the lords which gave them power, enough to rebel against the dragons, but those beings have scales that grant them immortality. When everything seemed hopeless, Seth the Scaleless betrayed his own kind and reveals the weakness of his brethren, lightning. Gwyn, one of the 4, starts firing lightning spears at the dragons, and with the help of the other 3 lords, the everlasting dragons died out. With that began the Age of Fire. The winner side starts calling themselves gods and they begin building cities and civilizations. Gwyn had his knights. Among them are 4 special ones: Dragonslayer Ornstein, Hawkeye Go, Lordsblade Kieran, and of course, Knight Artorias. One day, Gwyn found out that the city of Olersil is getting attacked by something called the Abyss. Gwyn, being aware of the threat it poses, sends his best man to deal with it. Artorias, equipped with the Covenant of Artorias and his companion Sif, makes his way to Olersil to get rid of the Abyss. An unknown amount of time later, we, the Chosen Undead, begin our pilgrimage to Lordran, the land of the gods. On our adventure, we pick up some items that speak of Artorias. For example, the Wolf Ring speaks of his unbendable will and skill with the Greatsword. He was praised as a legend that sacrificed himself to get rid of the Abyss for good. Eventually, we arrive at the Darkwood Garden. There's a cat which claims that the legends are nothing but fiction. We still keep going and eventually reach Artorias' grave. His companion Sif fights us, but it's not enough. The Chosen Undead obtains the Covenant of Artorias, which lets them traverse the Abyss. We use it to defeat the 4 kings in New Londo, the city that's been overtaken by the Abyss prior to Olersil. On the pilgrimage, we eventually get our hands on a pendant. Because of it, we get dragged down into the past. We're in Olersil, which in our time is the Darkwood Garden. There we meet a mushroom called Elizabeth, and she also claims that Knight Artorias got bested by the dark. After a while we finally meet him, covered in darkness, having lost all his senses, just a shell of who he was. Artorias never defeated the Father of the Abyss. Later on in the expansion you can find Alvina, who leads you to Little Sif. Artorias sacrificed his shield to protect his companion. You save Sif from the humanity surrounding him, which allows him to fight you years later for the Covenant of Artorias. The fight against Artorias is a mix of him using sword techniques and him just acting based on instincts like an animal. A fantastic detail is that his techniques resemble the moves Sif uses in his boss fight. During his fight with Manus, he lost his left arm, which you can see in this fight. It's just dangling there. He has a delayed swipe which will catch you off guard. When you attack from behind, he either does a full 360 or jumps away to stop you. His most iconic move is the series of flips he does. He can do it up to 3 times, and this gets referenced several times throughout the series. Every now and then he retreats to charge up, but you can interrupt him, which is highly recommended because his damage goes up like crazy. At the end of the day, his moves are quite simple. What carries this fight mechanically is the flow. Once Artorias is defeated, we fulfill his legend by killing Manus and traveling back to our time. No one will ever know what really transpired here. Artorias can finally rest, and even if he wasn't the legend people claimed, he deserved to be a hero for his selflessness. If you saved Sif before fighting him in the main game, a different cutscene will play where he recognizes you and sadly picks up the sword to fulfill his duty. This gives the fight a million bonus points. It's just so good! Artorias has been foreshadowed for so long, and when we meet him we finally learn the sad truth. It's just all so emotional and well written. And yeah, these are my 3 favorite bosses. I could end the video here, but the thing is, while thinking about my favorite bosses, I noticed something interesting. Roxas is from Kingdom Hearts 2, Virgil is from DMC 5, Artorias is from Dark Souls 1. All those games have great bosses. Some are even as good, if not better mechanically, than my 3 favorites. But what they all lack is the emotional hook. What makes these 3 bosses so fantastic is that they're not just faceless bots with attacks. They are all interesting outside of combat. For example, I know some people might get mad, but Ninja Gaiden 1. Mechanically, great game, sure, but I don't really give a shit about any bosses because they're all soulless. What I also love about my favorite 3 is that their mechanics tell you stuff about their stories. Roxas has 2 keyblades, not just because it's cool. He's Sora's nobody, which gives him 1 keyblade, and Ventus, another keyblade wielder, was also in Sora's heart, which gives Roxas his 2nd keyblade. Virgil taunts you and is often just standing further away and waiting for you to attack, which he instantly counters. That reflects his more introverted personality. Artorias jumps like a madman, which represents his corruption. He also has the same moves as Sif and cannot use his arm. It's just all so much better than a random demon or evil dude. But hey, at the end of the day, it's just my opinion. There are many fantastic bosses out there which I probably don't even know about, right? And with that being said, thanks for watching.